I'd like to welcome everyone to the regular meeting, Moose Lake City Council for Wednesday, June 14th, 2023. And I'd like to start with the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. We do have one addition, and this will be under 6 new business. It'll be old, and this is Lakeside Traders. Do we have any other additions or changes to the agenda? Hearing none, do we have a motion to accept the agenda?
So moved.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Under 2, consent agenda, we have A, the minutes, regular city council meeting, May 10th, 2023. Any discussion or questions on the minutes? If none, do we have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Under 2, consent agenda B. This is the financial reports. Number 1 is the city accounts payable for May 2023. Number 2, the city financial statements, May 2023. And number 3, the liquor store profit loss statement for May 2023. Do you have any discussion or questions on the financial reports? Any questions, comments? Do I have a motion to accept the financial reports?
So moved.
Do you have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to number 3. This is public comment. At this time, reserved for comments from the public on matters not listed on the agenda. And we ask that your comments are kept to 3 minutes. Having none, we'll move on. Number 4, departmental reports. And A, the police chief, department report for May 2023.
Here, members of the council, Administrator Owens. In your packet for the police department, you'll see the police report for May 2023, totaling 377 calls for service. 92 of those are for extra patrol, 121 traffic stops, 67 community engagements, 16 assists to other agencies, 76 calls for service, 5 medicals. So, as you can see, the 377, that's a fair amount of stuff going on, and you might look again at a lot of this now that you're seeing, and hopefully we're transitioning in, is the proactive piece. Again, I said it before, I'm shrinking the yellow section of the pie chart that you get for responding to calls, and again, we're trending in the right direction, so we're seeing a lot more on the proactive side, and probably a better job of documenting what everybody's doing. A lot of traffic stops that Chad Walsh is making, but it's, going well. So again, summers are busy here. We've got every weekend. There's just a lot going on, and overall, everything's been going pretty well. We finally got our squad back with the new engine in it. They got that done with. We went and picked it up this morning, and yeah, hopefully that'll be running well. It was all covered under warranty, which was a big deal. So hopefully we'll get a little extra life out of that squad. The new stop signs have gone in and the speed bump. For the most part, people have been obeying the stop signs. Getting used to them anyway.
We're getting there. Aren't we, Chad?
We are.
Yes.
Other than that, I just want to say we received an award from Lexipol, similar to the one we had from last year for our policy management. So it's just another nice thing that came out, and the officers that we have here that are going in and make sure and they're staying up to date on everything, and that we have current policy. I know it's expensive year after year for us to keep doing that, but that's probably one of the best investments we've ever made for stuff there. So that is all I have, unless you guys have anything for me. We did put in the application for that Polaris Ranger side-by-side. I haven't heard back on that yet, so we'll see if we end up getting that donated to the city. So
Explain the plaque a little more.
yes, it's for excellence in law enforcement policy management. So the new, our policy system that we went to is through Lexipol. And when a new update comes out from the state, I have to go in, read it, approve it if the update's there, select whether or not we're gonna take it, delete it. And then we get these monthly training bulletins that goes out to the officers. So they have a whole list of questions that they have to go in and answer that relates back to policy. So it's just a dual thing of letting them learn it. And then how many have read it. So I can go in and see, have they read it? How many have unread ones do they have left to go? And, monitor their level of that. So I've had to, hey, you need to get in there and review some of these policies, get, caught up to date. So it's just kind of the management of that system. And so they're kind of tracking what we do as well, which is a good thing. So,
That's quite an accomplishment. Thanks for
yeah, no problem. Thank you.
Pass it on to the crew. Thank you.
All right, we'll do that. Thank you.
Good job. That's a lot of counts, 377. City Superintendent report for May 2023.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, Administrator Owens, busy month as you can see out there. There's tons of things going on all over the city. So we'll start in the water department. Month May we distributed 6.1 million gallons of drinking water. The Minnesota Department of Health Source Water Protection Grant that we were awarded. All the documents have been signed, turned in, submitted. The next step is to get a couple of quotes. I'm working on that right now to get that submitted. We'll have quotes here for, I'll have quotes here for the July meeting for you guys to approve. Just gonna keep that ball rolling. Sewer department collection system collected 18.4 million gallons of wastewater in the month of May. That's way up due to the flooding. Treatment side of things, we were kind of in a tight spot there with that flood and the wastewater facility being compromised due to the flooding, the excess water did force us into doing an additional discharge, which is no big deal. It turned out to be a lot of water and it ran for I think almost 3 weeks. So, but everything's good. That's totally normal. That's standard protocol for anything like that. So we don't really care to see it because our numbers go up a little bit, but there's nothing we can do. Street department, pothole filling as always. I think everyone's seen that. We did find another outlet for some class 5. We've been hauling class 5 the last couple of days. So we'll see some bills come in for that. But class 5 is getting really tough to find right now. So it has been, the last pilot I bought was about a year and a half ago. And got an outlet on it, so we purchased quite a bit. And we're gonna get it in and get it done, so we have it. Cemeteries, it's been really quiet. Cutting grass, making everything clean. I think everything was good for Memorial Day, getting complaints, that was all good. The campground is doing well. The transition we're dealing with down there is going really well. So employees are doing good. There's some minor complaints from here to there, but nothing we can't handle. Bathhouse renovation, that's still scheduled for later this summer or this fall. I'm not sure when we're gonna get to it, but we'll get it done. The arena, just some small odds and ends. Ryan's doing some events down there. He knows more about that kind of stuff. My employees are taking care of some of the maintenance things. And then the other big one here is the hail claims for the roof replacement. We have a bid opening tomorrow morning, Ted, remember, at 10 o'clock up here at City Hall for 3 local contractors turning in documents for that. So we'll have those documents we'll bring to you for the next July meeting that we'll award and we'll move on. So got more to touch on later, but that's all I got for right now. Any questions?
Thank you.
Very good, thanks, Phil. Pass that on to Technology Library Department report.
Oh, Liquor Store first.
Excuse me.
Members of the council, Mayor Schaub, Administrator Owens. A few things for the liquor store. First one, we're having some issues with the condensing unit in there. So in the cooler, because of the humidity, there's some ice buildup back on the thing, so we've had a couple of people look at it and give us their recommendations. We are gonna move forward with putting a thermostat in there that'll kind of regulate it for us as opposed to the liquor store staff. Liquor store staff going in there and turning it off and on when they can, so we don't end up with a lake on the floor. Yeah, so that's happening. The Chamber of Commerce asked, and I'll need consensus for this, if we would be willing to sell raffle tickets for Nine and Dine down there. Nine and Dine is a golfing event, happens on Friday, July 28th. I'm not sure if we've ever done that down there or what the protocol looks like for that, but, so that's up to you guys, I guess.
You're looking for that right now.
Yep.
They would have to apply for a license, correct? To sell raffles to begin with.
So the chamber does all that process in the background just so that they can facilitate a raffle in general. So all those requirements are on the chamber as far as making sure that they have their process established. And they did mention at the meeting today that she had submitted all the proper documentation to host the raffle. They're just looking for different locations this year to sell the tickets and trying to look at a different approach rather than pushing them through all of the chamber members, more or less utilizing established institutions in the city to have them available at, or to send people to purchase them. So they did request with the city that we be one of those establishments, and of course we said it would have to go to council.
Council, any questions?
I'm fine.
I don't have a problem either. All funds go to them, we don't deal with any funds, so it's,
Yep.
we got consensus, Chris? Walter?
Yes.
So we have consensus, we can let them know.
All right, 99, thank you.
Yeah.
Also in your packet, we got a list of July 4th festivities down at the liquor store. Mari did a great job. This is kind of last second. You know, I had contacted several bands that were obviously booked for a long time, so we had realized nothing had been booked for that weekend. So this is kind of the lineup we came up with. Again, she did a great job. Taylor helped with the flyers, so thank you. We'll put it on Facebook. We'll get it over to the chamber so they can put it on their stuff, and away we go.
Very good, thank you.
Good. Let's see, anything else for the liquor store? I think that's it for that. Today.
Questions by the council? Oh, thank you very much, Ryan, appreciate it. I take it you're taking the technology library department.
Yeah, technology one will be a doozy. You want me to start?
Yes, please, thank you.
Some low-end activities. I installed a program for the DMV, so Leanne, who's our third person, can do some of the activities that Tracy and Karen do. So we did that. Let's see. I'm still having some issues with the arena sign, the outdoor digital board. I don't know how many hours I've spent on that. I just can't get it to connect, so still looking for solutions for that. Last year around this time, we had our third-party IT company come down and spend the day looking at it, and they came up with nothing. They had said that the company we bought it from was out of business now, so it's just one of those things. If I'm being completely frank, I think it's one of those things where there's too many hands in the cookie jar, so to speak. There's just too much access to meddle with that and kind of play around with it. So some wires, I think, got put in wrong spots, and someone was trying to program stuff on it. So we're where we're at. I'm gonna try again tomorrow because I know it's coming up, but the library has their book sale. They'd like to get their stuff on the digital board. Egg and Taste would like to get their stuff on the digital board. I don't know if that'll happen, but I'll do what I can to make it happen. Okay, so the big one here is, you guys have some quotes from VC3 in your packet. You definitely want to check these out. So ultimately what's happening here, and we were just notified through, I don't know, just discussions I was having with VC3, this came up like, hey, your server is end of life in October here. So that's a big deal. They said they looked back at records and they were talking with the city, and I think this was an administrator or two ago, and just nothing's been mentioned since. So just through my discussion, the ball got rolling here. Ultimately, we're on a Windows that will no longer be supported. So this is the quote for a few things here. So the new server, the hardware, and also the camera system. And that's going to be a bigger deal, I think, that we'll have to put some thought behind. So the server quote, get to it here. Just that alone, right, is $23,368. And then you get into what kind of service plan we get to choose from. So that's another, $500-600. The camera system quote, replacement quote, maybe I should back up. So why this is important is that if we don't upgrade, will everything shut down? No, but we will be incredibly vulnerable to viruses, to other things like that, because there'll be no updates happening in the background. So that's why it's really important to do this. They don't know about the cameras without switching out all new cameras. They did find a workaround, and that quote is in here, and it's the $5,250. However, this workaround still exposes the cameras part of this. So the cameras will still be vulnerable, but it will make them compatible with us upgrading to 2022 Windows version. Does that make sense to everybody? Yes.
What do you mean by vulnerable?
To viruses, hacking into the cameras, whatever. Yep.
And then this server, what all does the server run?
Just about everything that goes into the city. So cameras. So yeah, if you guys were to approve part or all of this today, there would be a huge discovery process. I would need to, work with all the departments to see exactly what's on everything, because they would all need to know. Like, just for example, the DMV that has state stuff on their computer, DNR stuff, I would need to talk with them to make sure, or VC3 talk to them to make sure that they know pretty soon we'll be on a much more recent version of Windows, and to make sure everything's compatible, working, because it could mean they need to download new software to their computers. Does that make sense, everybody? Yeah, so I guess I'm working with DSC to try and see there's a virtual solution possibly to update the cameras without replacing all the cameras. Just kind of waiting. They're talking with me and VC3 at the same time, so we're kind of got this three-way thing going on. And yes, I've seen these happen before, and Windows usually does an extension. Okay, so if they see, like, we approve it tonight, because we are 16 to 18 weeks out already from them being able to install this stuff, that already puts us, over the end of life stuff. So Windows would say, okay, well, you're at least on the book to upgrade. Here for $100, we'll extend you support for the next 3 months, 6 months, whatever that is. That typically happens, so, but I haven't seen a release for that yet.
End of life was October?
October, end of October.
And what happens at that point? What do they?
We become vulnerable.
So you want to check with the DMV, because if they have to go on and do any certifications because of the stuff they run, like we do for FBI and that, you'll be forced to upgrade. It's not going to be the option, or you won't be able to use any of the
Sure.
software to access any of those links. So check with that on your end, because if any of ours is in there, they'll have to be.
All part of the discovery process. So I would have no idea all the programs that everybody has. It's a huge task, honestly.
So this is something that ideally we would have liked to have been able to budget for, to plan for fiscally. To be entirely transparent, pretty frustrated with VC3, so we're under contract with them. So this type of replacement falls under their wheelhouse, which is why you're not seeing multiple quotes. We are under contract with them. They are our IT service provider, formerly known as CW Technology, so I know you've heard that name. They are now VC3. We did a little digging. They've had some turnover. Again, Ryan asked for some history, and it sounds like these conversations were had a couple of years ago for preparation, but then the information was never transferred and or tracked from their perspective and information sharing with us as well. So through their turnover and the city's turnover, it's gone. Ryan and I have had a little discussion about financing for it. This isn't really optional, so very tough position for the city to be in. We have utilized monies out of that $125,000 capital savings, but this is the type of item that we would be taking from there because it's not a budgeted item.
I got a question on this.
Yes, sir.
I'm wondering if we should contact a technology director, somebody who is running a business. I know there's at least one in town that I know of. He runs his business online and takes care of technology for businesses. Somebody with a more in-depth, I mean, this is not your fault, you're inheriting this without a degree in it.
Sure.
So I'm wondering if it'd be wise to talk to a technology director.
I mean, we certainly can. This isn't even really a VC3 thing. I mean, they should have been all over this, telling us about this
Yeah.
for a long time. But it's a Windows thing, so it's licensing and stuff like that. They just will no longer support that
Right.
year, the year we have, any further past October. So I mean, it just is what it is.
I think we should look into it, maybe get consensus from the council.
I would caution, if we look into it and we gotta wait longer, I mean, it's gonna push us out further as well.
Or maybe somebody to work with you
Sure.
to go through this process may be really helpful for you to working with this company, because whatever they're telling you, you're gonna have to believe with, and how they do it in timelines and money and,
Yeah, I mean, they got us a little bit, right? I mean,
Right.
I think 2 months ago, I was talking about an RFP process and going through a different company potentially. This halts that plan in my head because we can't afford to have a new company step in right now because they wouldn't have all the background history with us that these guys have.
and maybe just, if I get consensus, just to touch base with the person to see if, first of all, if they can assist us, if they have time, and what that expense could be, because once we find out, Alyssa could email it to the council members to see if you want to go ahead with it. I think we should look into it.
Maybe just to review the documents they send over.
Consensus?
Well, I just want to say, in my personal computer, I was very vulnerable and I got hacked and it made my life a nightmare. So I can't imagine with the amount of information the city, police, DMV have on their computer or, the server, that we couldn't afford to be vulnerable, so.
See, I'm required to even submit the actual physical drawing plan of our whole system, the firewalls and everything else, and how it runs and works, because every 2 years I have to recertify on all that, so there's a mapping thing that has to go with it, so I can be in touch with you, show you what we have, so.
Yeah, different kind of infrastructure, right?
So I have no problem, I guess, as somebody looking at the documents, but I would be in favor of, you know, immediately ordering the stuff and because it's, as a person, like I said, personal, it was a nightmare. I can't imagine the city and all these departments being left open door. And I don't even know with all the programs the police department has on it, I mean, they wouldn't let you run them if we didn't have a secure system, would they?
No, so that's what we're gonna have to see how much is actually run through the stuff that you have here, because we are required, you know, to do that and have it, and they check with us. Like I said, I have to retest and certify on and provide a mapping structure of our system, so.
And
The
I'm
only
sure
thing I
the
know for
DMV
sure is the camera server with you, but
And
there
the
could be
DMV, I'm
others.
sure, runs the same way, as they've got, you know, personal information.
Yep, tons of confidential
Yeah,
stuff.
confidential,
Yeah.
I just,
If they sent us a proof of the statement that we have to, or that it's no longer gonna be served,
Or supportive.
I think that'd be something that we should have, you know, just proof that that is actually
Yeah,
happening.
they can get that.
Because they can tell us whatever they want, like Mayor Shaw is saying is, you know, and I'm all for upgrading, that's not the point. It's just, I think that we should at least do our due diligence and say, yes, we have this letter that it's no longer gonna be updated, or we're not gonna be protected, and we had to make this decision.
Sure.
But if we have to make a decision, we have to make a decision, and we can't wait.
how long technically does a server last? I mean, what?
I think
5
we're
years?
currently on like a 2007 version of Windows.
So we're 12, well,
Yeah, I
Nice.
mean, we're at a breaking point.
And for
no, good,
clarification-
sorry,
For
please.
clarification, the server we have won't run on the most up-to-date version of Windows, which is why
Correct.
we have to replace the server so that you can utilize the new supported Windows.
That consensus, Doug, to have them talk with it. You may not be able to get any help and have to work with them, but just to check on
Yeah, I
technology
have tons of
director.
resources for this too, and to be fair, I mean, we just got this like on the 12th, so I haven't really had time to digest this. So,
Real quick.
right.
Yeah.
Yes, but I also think that we need to be looking at that, certainly what are we doing here with the $23,000 quote?
Well,
Yeah, I think with, you know, there's a lot of technical issues here, any information and help that we could get. I am a little concerned about the October deadline with
Yeah.
that, but if we could find some way to talk with this guy, see if he can help us, I don't see how that would harm anything.
Are you looking for more of a decision tonight, today, actually, the afternoon, on the expenditure?
Yes, and whatever, you know, if you want to put in, we talk to that guy and I can get an actual proof that it's end of life and that kind of stuff. I personally wouldn't wait too much longer on it.
So you recommended we make a decision on this expenditure to get the ball rolling
Yep.
with installation, ordering of the
Yeah, I
server.
mean, so they're doing this, and this is why I do believe them. I mean, they have a lot of people that are in the same boat right now, so I think they upgraded people at the same time as us, and they have like 14, 15 other clients that are going through the same thing.
so is the camera system something you have to do at the same time? Or is that something we could do?
Yep, so the cameras themselves are older. They do run on an older Windows version as well. This other quote for where it says replacement camera system is their workaround, but the cameras would still be on an old Windows version. So they would still be susceptible until we can come up with a better solution for that isn't a through the roof, you know, price tag.
So this isn't replacing the cameras, this is replacing the camera server.
Yeah. I mean, did that have to be replaced at the same time as the main server?
If you want the cameras to work,
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
So what are we looking at here for totals? It's 23,000 for the server, and the cameras were
6398.
6,398.
Yep.
60? Let's see here. No.
$6,398.
You're right. Okay.
So somewhere around $30,000 for everything.
Well, this, I think we would do two bids. I would ask the first bid, I guess for the main server, which is, that's the $23,368, and that will come out of our capital
Savings.
savings. So there is enough in the budget for it right now. So I'd ask for that first motion on the server, $23,368.
I'll make that motion with the understanding that we're going to talk to whoever you had in mind.
Right,
to
I'll give it to Ryan
And
to
to get
call.
verified and prove that this is something we actually need to do.
Sure. That makes sense.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. The next one would be for the workaround for the cameras of, let's see, that is the $6,398.
Brian, do you have a recommendation on this? Does this, what would be required after this workaround for expense?
So this is the one that I probably have the most trouble with, because we could upgrade this or do this solution, and then it, I would hate for something to happen after the fact. It feels like a Band-Aid until we have a better solution, but it's a $6,398 Band-Aid. It's just tough for me to swallow that, I guess. I don't know.
Are we thinking of replacing the cameras instead?
Well, that's a lot of money to replace them all.
How many are we talking, just for the councils?
30?
We have 30.
30
But
cameras?
we would be able to reduce the amount of them now just because of the technology of the cameras and getting a 360 view versus a 270 or whatever it was. So there's some spots that have several cameras in close proximity that we wouldn't have to have. And I still think we should be more strategic on where they go, and we can probably get by with less. But I kind of agree with Ryan as far as going down the road of doing a Band-Aid on it if we have to go without some of that stuff, because they're in such bad condition right now and the quality. Is that what you're kind of getting at?
Maybe we take some time to do a little more
Sounds
work
like we
on the
need
cameras.
a comprehensive plan on the camera replacement.
Yeah, I guess here's what I would do. I would make a motion to approve it with the condition that I'll continue in working with BSC about a cloud-based solution that might make this go away, and then we don't have to pay for it. We just pay for the cloud-based solution that fixes everything. Does that make sense?
So instead of the cameras being supported by an internal server, the cameras would be supported by a cloud. So it would take this $6,000 expense, and we would be paying for a cloud-supported camera system, and then have the opportunity to spend this money towards cameras and upgrading the system in general.
Like I'll wait a week or two before approving this, if that makes sense, and continue to talk about a different solution, and then I can just bring it to you guys if we come up with one.
If we went with the cloud, we would never need the server again in the future, would we?
Correct.
The cloud, that sounds like an interesting idea there.
So that's the third quote on here for the server here too, is to back up some of this stuff into the cloud. The rapid data recovery. So you'll see it's cloud retention, you'll see on there.
The $16.
I would look for consensus on approving this one too. Probably at the So they left that open, but I would do the option 3 for $591.34, and then whatever the recycling of the whole device.
Just so council is aware, our insurance company has made us aware that some of this cloud-based stuff is actually going to be required, and the training of employees for phishing and that type of activity will be required by our insurance company moving forward to make sure that we have the most up-to-date processes and activity from a technical standpoint too, because there's a lot of liability if you're not. So some of this stuff will continue to be a choice, and some of it will be pushed down through even our insurance to make sure that we have safety mechanisms in play and up-to-date equipment and technology in place for the city.
So what I'm hearing, the first motion that we need is the Band-Aid for now, until we can do a more comprehensive plan. But yet with a contingency of giving you, before the money's spent, to see if you can do a cloud-based solution instead of the 6,000. So you have an option there.
Right.
And you know, your monthly pay is based on that. So, no, I just. So council, does everyone understand?
Yeah, I just have another question. If we had to go with the Band-Aid and it made the cameras vulnerable,
Yeah.
is there any way that would maneuver into the main server?
No, but they would have access cameras.
But I mean, there's no way that would cross into.
No, because it's a different server.
So do we have a motion? For a temporary Band-Aid? They'll keep the cameras operating till we have time to come up with a more permanent solution and
Yep.
funding.
And I can bring updates all the time about where we're sitting with this stuff, or shoot out emails, or
I'll make the motion that we purchase the replacement camera system, but in the meantime, look at that cloud storage, see if that would be an alternative. Is that what we should do?
Have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Now, you said there was a third element.
yeah, that's the rapid data recovery, hardware as a service. I don't know what the HAAS stands for.
What page is that on?
Oh, it's hardware as a service, that's what it says.
I want to make sure I'm looking at the right thing. Is this on,
It's on page 57.
Yeah.
okay, 57, 58?
And they left that open for us to decide an option.
So which option are you recommending?
The infinite cloud retention.
And the
That's
price
just
is
me.
the $16.35 a month?
No.
$591.34. And I would do the $25 for them to get rid of the old stuff.
So that's a 3-year, so we'd have to renew that every 3 years?
Yep.
What do we have? Do we have anything like that right now?
And I'm not positive.
We have
There's
a-
something.
We have a cloud-based backup system currently in play, but it's relevant to our current server. So anytime you change out the server, you have different backup options. So we are already doing something very similar to this that's within our monthly billing as is, and the price is a little less, but similar. So this is absolutely something I would recommend.
Council? Is that a motion?
Motion to do the data recovery backup plan as suggested at $591.34. For 3 years.
Do I have a second?
Oh, sorry. One more thing, also with the $25 to get rid of the old devices.
Recycle, right?
Yes.
Very good. Second on the motion?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll send out a communication when we know whether or not there's a cloud-based option. So we'll keep council informed as we move on.
Very good. Number 4, engineer report. Monthly update for June 6th.
Yes, so as always, we are covering some of these topics, have and will cover them throughout the meeting. I do have a couple of different items to highlight. One being, we did apply for a $205,000 grant with the Minnesota DNR. That would be in addition to the $492,000 TAP grant that the city's already been awarded for phase 2 of the trail. So the application has been submitted and we're expecting to hear results in June. So hopefully by next council meeting, we'll know whether or not we were awarded the additional monies. Between the $205,000 and the $492,000 we've already received, this would mean that the city could facilitate the phase 2 of the trail with very little expense, if any. So we'd be bringing forward new estimates with new dollar values associated. So that's really exciting and we're hopeful we'll get that and we should know relatively soon. And if we don't, we'll look at other options for grant funding to help make up the difference.
We'll back up a little bit up the page because we can jump ahead, but that's okay.
Yeah, the Wells 3 and 4 replacement project.
We did lose a vital piece of equipment that runs well 3. Sorry. Anyway, it's called a VFD, variable frequency drive. It went out about a month ago. The options are to rebuild it, replace it. Replacing takes forever. We had it rebuilt. It is back in service. In the meantime, we put some hardware in so we could manually run the well in case we lost something with the other well. We would at least still be able to run it manually, which is a bear, but it's doable. And then nobody would even know we had an issue. Water, everyone would still have water regardless. We have that backup in place now. That was some components we had our electrician put in, but the VFD is back in place. No, it's not under warranty. It's just outside of our window. I pushed and I tried. We did what we could do. We do have that backup equipment for anything like that ever happening again, so we're good there. And then we'll jump ahead to where Administrator Owens just finished on the 4th Street reconstruct project. We did a walkthrough on that last week. All the punch list items have been done. Other than I think the landscapers have to come back one more time. But other than that, looks pretty good.
We did do a bonding bill. We're working on a bonding bill application, but we'll touch base on that later on in the meeting. I don't know if I grabbed anybody's attention within the meeting minutes. In addition, the GIS mapping system is something that we've all kind of been working on in the background. The focus at this point in time is adding a zoning layer to the map, which is a super valuable tool for the city. We've not had an interactive zoning tool before. So we've been kind of going off of old hand-drawn maps and or screenshots of computerized maps that didn't have updates on some of the adjustments to our zoning. So this is a pretty big deal for the city. It's going to be really, really beneficial. And we're excited that that's the point we're at with that GIS mapping system as far as adding in that zoning layer. So that's excellent. Anything else I believe we're going to talk about further on in the meeting, so I'm good if you're good.
Yep, I'm good. Thank you.
Just a real quick one.
Mirror.
You know I always have one.
Well, you didn't last time, but go ahead.
That I point of sale, that was the solution we came up with, is working, correct?
That's an agenda item later on in the
We're
meeting.
going to hit it then.
Yes.
Yep, we're going to talk about that.
Thank you very much.
You bet.
Any questions on the city engineer report from the council? Any other items? Good. Then we'll move on to Chamber of Commerce updates.
So they did have the monthly Chamber of Commerce meeting today, just a couple of items that, that came forward. They have established a theme for the 4th of July parade that's gonna be Salute to the Soldiers. In addition, they have awarded a grand marshal, and that's going to Mike and Julie Peterson. So they've established their grand marshal, they've got a theme. Right now you can contact the chamber if you'd like to have a float in the parade. So that's something that they're working on. The fly-in breakfast is happening this Saturday, June 17th. The Dine and Dine golf event is Friday, July 28th, and they're currently looking for teams. And the triathlon is coming up on August 12th, Saturday, August 12th. So they're really busy, and those are some of the events and dates and times.
And Agate Days is on schedule.
Agate Days is on schedule as well.
Any questions by the council? No? Moving on to number 5, previously discussed business, 5A 2023 easement report. Joe Schmidt.
Yes, so last month, Joe Schmidt did approach council. Where we had left it was that the city wanted to determine whether or not they had access with their existing infrastructure from our current property that we own to the adjacent property to which could be utilized for a pond expansion. So, City Superintendent Edgar, do you have an update, or can you share information on that?
Yeah, so after I was on site and looked at exactly what was going on here, any type of vacation of any type of easement, cartway, whatever, doesn't matter, is not gonna affect what we need to do out there for any type of future expansion. We're gonna deal directly with us being the landowner on one side, us being a landowner on our side, and then Silver Township, and I believe Woodson Township. So there will not be anything that would hinder any of that work having to take place.
Joe Schmidt has been in contact with the city since then. We did communicate to him that, you know, at this point in time, that cartway was established through Silver Township and Moose Lake Township, and so it wasn't relevant to us at this point in time as far as any type of request. We did share that we had determined where infrastructure currently sits, that we have access to that other parcel and the straight shaft, and so that wasn't concerning to us either. He then at that time shared with us that he's going to be requesting from the city an easement on city property that is over the same tract that the other Schmidt family currently has established with the city. So what we've done at this point in time is we've reached out to the county, and I have not heard back from Carleton County yet. And what we're trying to establish is tract A that's included in the packet. We just want to keep council informed. That is on
66.
Page 66. We want to establish that tract A follows the exact legal description as the existing easement between the city and the other Schmidt family, so that we don't have conflicting easements or overlapping. We want to keep it nice and clean and simple. So we have reached out to the county to confirm that. Once we get confirmation that that legal description is the exact current easement we have in place, we'll come back to council with a request. Unfortunately, we have not gotten information from the county yet as of right before the meeting, so not asking for a motion at this time.
Information only. Any questions by the council? And your full recommendation is to approve that?
Allow
If it
the
all-
easement, yes, in the same
It all-
location for the other family,
okay.
yeah.
Just so the council knows that. Very good. Any other items on the easement? No. Moving on to 6A, new business. City Moose Lake Campground boondocking discussion.
And so this idea, or this discussion has been brought forward from the park board. The park board did give a recommendation to bring the idea forward to council for additional discussion. So that is the idea today. Based on the discussion today, what we'd be looking for is we're kind of at a point where if council would like to move forward with investigating, we would be spending money and resources to do so. So we wanted to make sure that there was consensus and/or open dialogue regarding utilizing city resources to continue to look into this. So
Walt, this is your baby. Let's do it.
I was looking at boondocking. What is boondocking? It's camping without amenities like water, electric, and sewer. It seems to be getting more and more popular over the years here. It's mostly with camper vans and smaller RVs. I was thinking that we have this property that we purchased from the school down there, the old football field basically, and it's just going to be sitting there vacant here for a number of years until we find out if we are going to be able to get the grant for the expansion. And I thought in between that time, it would be an opportunity to possibly open up part of the football field and lot off some areas for boondocking camping, and do it on the cheap as we could. I was looking at doing it without any roads other than the small access road that would be coming in from 7th Street, and be basically using possibly a picnic table and a fire ring. I do believe you said that one time that there could be extra picnic tables that could possibly be able to use for something like this.
Yes, we are picnic table rich.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
We have tons.
Looking at the ground, my main concern was, if there would be sinking, if it was a wet season, and whether or not campers would sink in there. If you go down and you look at the field, it's mostly sand and gravel without a lot of top layer on there. The field is higher than the rest of the area down there, and it is sloped for drainage from being a football field there. So I think we would have some water runoff there. And like talking to the campground host, like when it was wet season, he said that when the rest of the campground's wet and the park is wet, you could still always go and mow that football field there, that it would always be relatively dry. I just wanted to bring the idea up to the council as a whole. You'd have to do it, like I say, in a cheap manner to make it viable, because you're not going to bring in a ton of money on something like this. But basically, there's about 4 weeks where the campground gets really full, like Memorial Day, Labor Day, and 4th of July, and the Agate Days weekend. And I would like to see this open for the whole summer period. When I had first started thinking about this was in the winter, and I hoped to be able to try to get it done by July, but the flood came, and that's kind of set back everybody in the city, and having extra work on all that stuff. But I just think there's an opportunity. I did discuss it some with Ryan and Taylor, and they seem to think that at times there is a need for more camping spots. And I just thought that this would be a way to take care of that and generate some money. I think we had discussed somewhere around $30. There would be a campsite somewhere.
25, 30 bucks.
Somewhere around there. And right now, the lots down at the campground are somewhere in between 30 and 80 feet like that. But I don't know if they would have to be that big for this type of camping. You could probably get away with smaller lots and that. So I just wanted to bring it up and see. I'm open for ideas and discussion and suggestions on any of this from anybody. So I just wanted to bring it up to the council as a whole, because like I say, we do have a few years. We don't know if we're going to get that grant. And I also think this could be also a kind of a learning experience to us, because there's been some debate that if we do get this grant, where we would want the main entrance to be, whether we would want it to be where it is now or to move it over to 7th Street. And by having this, we would have some kind of feel like what the traffic is like coming in and out of 7th Street. Maybe that would give us a feel if that was the area where we would want to put the main office on there, So I'm just wondering what other people have to say about it, and if it's something that we could be done. You know, it's basically a big, large triangle, and I'm looking to turn it into smaller triangles for camping spots and just have some roads in there to be able to back your camper up in there. You'd have to have the right amount of space to be able to get in and out of the lots. So that's where I'm at.
Council?
I just have a question. Would we only allow, say, the, whatever campers, van-type campers? Or, I mean, there's smaller enclosed campers that are self-contained. Most, campers are at this point. Would we allow those
I would-
smaller ones up there?
Yeah, I was looking at it, having it to be open to, you know, like mid-sized campers down to the smaller. I mean, technically, you could even have tents on it, you know, I mean.
That was my next question,
Mhm.
is could we use it also for tenting?
If it was for tenting, and I imagine those spots, you would charge the same amount as the other tenting sites that we have. You know, I don't know what we would have to discuss what the fee would be and figure out the basics like that. But it could be open to anyone. I don't know if the really large campers or the RVs, if that would be, a good place to be putting them, the big, huge ones, because they're so much heavier and
There, I know a lot of campgrounds, there's spots, and maybe this is something we would have to put like on the website, that only certain size, your camp has to be a certain size to fit in this area, so you'd be able to, limit it that way, that they would have to be in a.
one of the people on the park board did bring up concern about, if there was generators allowed, it would be loud and annoying, but I'm not quite sure what is the policy of generators in the campground that we have right now. I mean, you would have it on a time limit for, say, like in the morning or afternoon. But also now, a lot of stuff is going towards battery power, solar power, so there isn't such a need for generators so much anymore. So I thought, that would have to be discussed, whether or not they can use generators, and if so, a time limit. I know the campgrounds that I've been to, they do allow generators, but it's like from 8 to 6 or something like that.
Usually like 10 o'clock at night.
So we do have our noise ordinance that we could utilize as a guideline for generators. I know some of the concerns from a city administration perspective were, you get a weekend of heavy rain, and depending upon the size of the rigs, they're going to sink into the field. We do have a way to cap out size based on our reservation system, so that is an option. What's included in the packet was an overview map of the football field, but then also the first diagram on page 71 is actually was utilized for mapping within our campground expansion, so it gave an example of a layout. Again, it doesn't have to be followed, but those were full-size spots and how you could configure full-size spots in there. Just to kind of be utilized for discussion purposes only, but that's what that diagram was within the packet as well. City Superintendent Edner went through and looked at the cost of if we were going to bring Class 5 in to create a road and paths. Would you like to share what that estimate was?
If we were to do something similar to this blue one, as you see on page 71 there, our Class 5 expense there would be between $13,000 and $15,000 for the pads and then.
So if we wanted to see if it was viable prior to having some type of expenditure like that, the recommendation would be to do it without Class 5, but then you're limiting the size of the units to try and curb any type of rutting or issue.
You could see this as a overflow for tenting. And and people parking in the parking lot, you know, that we own at the elementary and walking over and doing camping without having to worry. Kind of like an overflow camping site.
Sure, we don't normally sell out our tent sites, only on our 2 big weekends within the summer. The need that we have, that we oversell on is
Camp.
is campers. So, but we don't have a way of determining a size that we're missing out on.
Chief, did you have something you wanted to?
Yeah, it's just a thing of caution when you structure and set it up, because, you know, what you could end up creating too, when you start taking away some of those other amenities, and what the cost is that transient housing for the summer months, when you look at all these different places down south that are, those are happening too, where they're pulling in RVs, and then you have that extended stay, and they're gonna stay here the whole summer with that, so just to be cautious of what you set it up and how you structure it, because you might end up with cars parked everywhere all over the place, the generators and those kinds of things running. So those have been popping up all over the place, so just be careful how you lay it out, what the term of the stay is gonna be, can they renew, how that's gonna all be.
So we thank you for mentioning that. That's a great point. We do have some of those in play with our campground in general. So the reservation stay is a 2-week maximum. And in addition, we're not giving any type of discounts for extended stays. So we are kind of curbing that potential by you pay full price and you have a 2-week maximum. And that so far has worked really well.
So we've had to remove one last year, I think it was, out of there for that similar type of thing, and we had a lot of issues, and then just had to move them along. But, yeah, I mean, I like the out of the box thinking or whatever, but just keep that in mind of what you could create, you know, whether by choice or some people just don't have another place to go. That could be it.
Yeah, I think it, you know, introducing it today was the right thing to do. We don't have a timeline on this, if at all, that could be set up for next year, if everything works well. So, to me, I think we've discussed it enough, and I want to move on, because we've got a lot of things on the agenda. So introducing it now was great. It gives the council things to think about and to look into before our next council meeting, and maybe work on it at each council meeting to see what we come up with. Is there any specific thing to look in for next council meeting? It sounds like if we're gonna have camps, there's gonna be some kind of truck or vehicle. I guess the road would be the first thing, and how that's laid out. I'm guessing that would be the first thing to do. If we have a general idea, which we do already, it would make sense to follow the layout that's there for the larger project we're thinking of. The only thing that I'm thinking of, we did have one developer with a little bit of interest in that land. So we have to think about that too. Are we gonna go ahead with a campground, or if there's interest in developing that into, I guess I can't say too much yet, because the developer, that'd be more for the EDA committee. I think we need to have that discussion with the EDA committee on that, the development of that land, and then also the layout of the road. I think that could happen before our next meeting next month. Step by step, I don't think we need to rush into anything right now.
Sure.
A couple of things too, you know, depending upon what we get up and running from a Class 5 standpoint, if we eventually have additional resources available of our own, that makes some type of project like this, or, you know, lessens the investment of something like this, to then get up and running and do it in a way where we could charge more for the site and have it be available for larger campers, and the investment is covered by our own resources. I mean, there's things like that for future to think about as well, more long term.
What's the demand for this? $12,000, that's a lot of money just to throw out for a maybe. It takes a long time to get your money back out of it. I'm looking at the whole image here, I'm not shooting you down the wall.
Yeah, I know,
Yep.
the $12,000 for the roads.
For the road, the pads, yeah.
You know, I'm thinking about doing this, that you don't need that.
So, I mean, that would definitely be an option, for sure, just to see what our demand is, you know, if it,
And then when I look at this example that we got here, you know, they've got eight camp spots in the whole entire football field. I don't, you know, I look at that as a all right plan to do something like that for if we got the grant, but the way that I was looking at doing this wasn't set up the way that they have that. I think you could fit in a lot more camping spots in a full football field than 8 spots. I had looked along just lotting off the southern part of it, and you could probably have somewhere around 6 or 7 lots along the southern fence, and then possibly some more. I mean, there are plenty of options of where to make the sites down there. I mean, there's quite a bit of land to deal with there. And I understand what Ted is saying here too with, you know, with future development here, but the conversation has been for the last years about putting a campground in there. So I didn't know where the talks were on future developments there. I also don't know about.
That hasn't happened yet.
Okay, my word, you know, that's all been listed as a floodplain down there, and we've seen from this year having 7 feet of water in a campground that, you know, it is limited down there where you can build. And I'm not quite sure where they have drawn the floodplain lines down there.
It's right around where it flooded.
Yeah.
Now that it isn't up into the football field. So I'm gonna end this discussion. We need to move on.
That's
I
fine.
think we spent enough time on it. But I think it's worth the discussion, and it needed to be introduced. And I think for the next council meeting, just so that we're moving ahead, the EDA needs to be brought up to date on, which I don't know if they have been, because some of that is how would you say confidential, because of what the potential developer was talking about, and I think asked for confidentiality. So that can happen with the EDA board. And also, I think, more discussion, your layout, the idea of along the south fence line, maybe if you could bring that up with a little bit of a design.
I actually got one right here.
Well, then let's present it next.
Pass that baby out.
Let's do this, present it in the next council meeting then.
Okay.
Because we're not on a strict timeline on this, so we have time to talk about it and look at the option.
Walt, I'd be happy to meet with you too and look at that later next week and kind of lay a few things out, and get some quantities, some numbers, and get some, just to keep it all moving, so. Yep.
Great, thank you. Moving on to 6B, ordinance number 166, inflow and infiltration point of sale discussion.
Hi, yes, so, the city administration and the city council received a communication, from Mary Holm Lund regarding, a delay in the sale and purchase of property. So, our I-9 ordinance, based on our I-9 ordinance that has been adopted, their lateral line was deemed, needing to be replaced. It failed our inspection. And so with that, what we came across is an issue where buyers and sellers are in a hurry in order to get the work done, and they couldn't find contractors. So in the background, of course, the city does not want to impede sale of property. City Superintendent Edner has done some homework regarding what other communities are doing with an ordinance such as ours in place. So he's going to share his recommendation and the information he found based on research.
So I'll back up just a fuzz here, and you know how we're doing trenchless lining, right, with our sewer system? They do that for your house service as well, and it's actually very common, and it's turning out to actually be more economical than it is to dig in place. So that demand is there, and there's now 3 or 4 different contractors running around doing this, and I've seen 3 of them, and they're doing really good work. I personally, I like the idea of it. Saves everybody money, it's way faster.
With that being said, of course, everybody's behind, the demand is up. We have, yeah, like Administrator Owens mentioned, that gap between selling, the closing, whether the work's gonna get done before or after, we need to come up with a solution for that. With that being said, I reached out to the City of Carleton. They are setting up an escrow account during closing that withholds 1.5 times the amount of money that the cost estimate would be to line that service line. That money is held from that point after it's done and it's proved to be done, signed up by the city. That money is paid out to the contractor and then to wherever it would go. My recommendation would be to withhold monies from both parties, the seller and the buyer, so they both are a little hungry and they want their money back, right? Keeps everybody moving, everyone wants a little bit of money back, contractor wants the work. For me, the more people you upset and get their attention, you're gonna get things done a lot faster, right? We all know that. That would be my recommendation, and I think my recommendation even would be 2 times the amount of the estimate. Because, let's be honest, Doug, if I sell you a house and we both have money out of the line, we're gonna want that money back, like yesterday, right? So let's get this done. Both of us will be after that same goal, instead of just the buyer, just the seller, or whoever. I think that would be my recommendation. That's what I'd like to see.
So the City of Carleton is doing that, holding monies for the project in an escrow account and then 1.5 times the project amount. And the means of, another means or reason why behind they're holding 1.5 times the amount of the project is if the project goes over estimate as well. So you're kind of covering your bases as far as keeping both parties involved, both parties engaged, and you're covering the cost of if the project goes over budget. So Carleton is doing 1.5 times the estimate. Again, the contractor is paid and then a check is cut to both the buyer and the seller after the work is complete. The escrow company is facilitating all of it so that it's not utilizing city resources, but the city ordinance is upheld. Superintendent Edner's recommendation is utilizing an escrow account, withholding 2 times the project cost. Again, the escrow company would pay the contractor and then both parties would be refunded after the work is done. The City of Proctor, we had our engineers reach out to the City of Proctor and they are doing something that very similar, exact same. What we've heard is that when additional money, so the 1.5 times or the 2 times the amount of the cost, when that is not in play, there's not enough motivation from both parties to actually facilitate the work, and it just doesn't happen. So we're gonna try and learn from some other area communities with their process, and that's why the recommendation is what it is.
Council, questions?
I'm just concerned that I don't want to go overboard on the price because this is an expensive thing. I think that there's a fine line between that 1.5 and 2. I'm concerned 2 being too much, but I do like the idea of both parties having it withheld from them because I agree 100% with you that they both want their money back.
Right.
I'm just concerned that how expensive this is.
What is about the average cost?
If it's about $100 a foot, and all service lines are different in town. We have some that are 300 feet, we have some that are 40 feet. So it all varies. I mean, I understand what you're saying, Doug, I do. I guess, from my perspective, if I was selling or buying a house, it would make me move like right now. And it would most people, you know, it would.
So each party, what you're suggesting, each party is paying the dollar amount of the estimated project.
So
Correct,
we-
into escrow, correct.
Both of them.
Correct. When you do 1.5 versus 2, then your math problem just gets a little fuzzy. Whereas if you're at 2 times, each party's contributing the exact same amount and it's the cost of the
Sure.
estimate.
Whose responsibility is it that it's the sellers?
Yes. Yes.
Now, let's say it goes over and that money's in escrow. To me, then they could not use that half that was in there by the buyer. There would have to be something in there stating you cannot take the buyer's money because then they're helping to pay for that project.
How, the logistics of the money would be something that's hashed out within the purchase agreement. So not necessarily, I mean, we don't have to have our hands in it as long as that dollar amount is in the escrow account. That those types of discussions will be part of the purchase negotiation between the buyer and the seller.
And what Doug, you're thinking of is like, instead of double, like each is paying 3/4, 2/3? Probably 2/3 because that would be 1.5.
Yeah, I'm just concerned about the amount is all I'm saying. I think our neighbor just had that done today.
Yep.
I thought it was around $8,000.
Yep.
So I just want it to be fair. I do agree that it needs to be done. I think it's a great workaround for this, and it definitely helps the city as well with our I&I.
Oh, 100%, absolutely. And I agree with you, it is a strong ask, absolutely. I do believe it's being fair though. At the end of the day, if the work's getting done, everyone's getting money back, and everything's done to our standards. But I do understand where you're coming from. And I was the one that went 2%. I brought that up, and I'm
Sticking to it.
yes,
Is
and
anybody else at
absolutely.
2%?
Let me ask you-
Nobody that I talked to, nobody I'm aware of. So no, absolutely not. But I'm a firm believer, I mean, even in my personal life, if I got money hanging out there, I'm gonna move after it, because I need it. We all do. Absolutely, it's gonna make people move. But this is your town, not mine. And
A
I just
question
put
on
2%
that.
out for the easier background.
And I don't know if this has happened in Carlton or Proctor. Okay, let's say they do pay the 2/3 or the double, and they sell the house and they buy it, and they still don't do it. What happens to that money in escrow?
It stays there.
What?
It stays in escrow. Based on the purchase agreement and the verbiage within it, the money stays in the escrow account until the work is done.
So they don't get their money back.
Right.
Correct.
But whether they don't care, it just stays in escrow.
Well, somebody's gonna care, because won't the seller be then obligated at some point to, or I mean, the buyer?
If the buyer ever wanted to sell the house.
Yeah.
What's the teeth that we can put into this besides that, I guess?
Right.
Besides
I
that.
understand it all. I just asking questions.
No, we appreciate that, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, somebody would be responsible at some point to.
Yeah.
Right.
But I think everyone in their mind is thinking they're gonna get it done, so it's complete and finished, and it isn't hanging there, and the money is.
And that's why I thought we'd make the dollar value big enough.
Yeah.
People are gonna move a little harder.
I
There's
think
a- there's
Carlton
a-
learned the hard way.
I believe I heard something very similar. to
Carlton
that.
learned the hard way, and now they're at 1.5 times.
Well, I'm thinking, taking your point, and start at 1.5, and if it's a problem, we go to 2. We have that option
We could
always.
vote, yeah, we could always change it, but I mean, we could vote 1.5 and then try it for 1 year, and if we then re-vote or whatever, say that if after a year we don't like it, we can go up to 2% reduce our
Absolutely.
rate or whatever we want.
We're not stuck at 1.5. I mean, we have those options. In other words, let's see if we have a problem first before we go to, because I can understand it, going 2 times the cost of the thing. I guess those are kind of the options that are out there. So I'll ask the council, any further questions and or motions?
Well, we definitely need a motion.
Yes, we do, because I think we have 3 of them kind of holding up, waiting for this.
So we do already.
Yeah.
Details?
Yeah, it seems like every other day I'm doing something.
What were the motions, or what was the?
I think Phil's recommendation was to have this in place, or use escrow 2 times a project. Each buyer and seller put in equal amount. The cost of the project, it sounded like. Yeah, so then the other one is that what Carlton is doing at 1.5, which would mean each party put in 2/3. the cost of the project. Correct?
3/4. We get you 1.5.
3/4, yeah.
3/4 we get you 1.5,
Okay.
and then they each get a quarter of that.
Three-fourths of the project. So those are kind of the two options we're looking at on the table.
I guess I would make a motion that we do what Carlton did and have each party put in 3/4 of the lining project into escrow. I guess, and just for lining project, and let the city council look at this again in a year, see if we're not where we need to be.
Do I have a second?
One second.
All in favor, say aye.
I
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay. Moving on to C, John Brown Drive pavement repair discussion.
In your packet, on page 76 and 77, there are two estimates there to do a 80 by 23 foot, 24 foot wide patch by the water tower on John Brown Drive. It's too big for us to do. If you want us to try it, we will, but it won't have a crown and it won't drain water. We will be tearing it out and fixing it. So my recommendation is my recommendation would be to go with the cheapest quote here to have that area patched. Keep in mind with Rokon paving, we currently have a credit with them. It's actually a pretty healthy one too. It's like $16,000. Yeah, so, right. Yep. That would be my recommendation. But something has to happen because in the winter that section of road swells up and it's awful.
It's breaking up
Yep.
there right now. So it'd be the 8250, but we're looking at using the credit,
Correct.
so it should be no expense at this time?
Correct. If you guys choose to go that way, yes.
Okay. Council action?
Is there another option?
I mean, there is, but not
Well,
one that makes sense.
I mean, if we have $16,000 and we're using them, can we get more bang for the buck and use the 16,000 for bigger work or not?
Yep, and you'll see more quotes this summer for other places.
Okay.
So,
So the way that City Superintendent Edner explained it to me is with the county roller, with renting the county roller, there's certain areas that they can do on their own and that they've been doing. This is not one that we can do on our own, so we're kind of forced to outsource in a way. And so that explanation kind of helped me wrap around what we're capable of doing in-house versus what we need help with.
correct.
Question, while they're there, this is kind of like the entrance into the dollar store.
That's exactly what it
Which is
is.
terrible. Farther down the road, there's a part that went beyond the spider web. I mean, it's just totally broken up. And it's right on the side of the road.
Is it right on the top of the hill?
Yes,
So it's the one we patched last Friday?
I don't know, did you?
Have you drove down there since Friday? Because we patched a 10-tonner down there, that was 60 by 20, 60 by 8
That's
last
probably
Friday.
it. That's
Right on the
probably it.
top of the hill?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's not there anymore, it's much better. Yep.
great. You're fired, no.
Thanks, Ted. I've been wanting to say that. But that would be my recommendation.
Very good, council.
I'll make that motion to go with Rokon paving for the estimate of $8,250.
Do I have a second? I'll second that. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, sir. You have another one.
One more.
Sure do.
I planned this accordingly.
She always does.
2023 sewer lining project discussion.
You want to start this one?
Yes, so we've been working with the city engineers to establish a lining project. The one that you see on the map currently was picking up where we left off and moving forward. What we've kind of determined based on the infrastructure and after we had the camera footage, we established that there was significant issues in multiple areas. Traffic control, there are other components that make this project in this particular length, which we've been able to accomplish with our $100,000 budget previously. We are now looking at potentially a $300,000 project to facilitate the same distance based on the state of the infrastructure and the traffic control on the project.
And bypass pumping,
And
because there's
bypass.
multiple setups for bypass pumping, not this area, only because we'll be dealing with MnDOT crossing the highway multiple different times in different directions. So this area is difficult and it's expensive. So,
Kind of looking at options and wanted to have open discussion with council.
Yeah.
So if we want to pick up where we left off, we're looking at potentially not having a project to do this year and having to save money. If we are looking at changing direction, we can come up with potentially a different project that's not picking up from where we left off that would utilize the $100,000. There's lots of pros and cons. Some of the internal dialogue that Superintendent Entner and I have had is that when we're looking at pond capacity and wanting to make a dent in our pond capacity for potential development, it's important that we continue to make progress. So we're kind of weighing in between, if we don't do a project this year, what impact that could have. However, we just did a $300,000 project that's not in the metrics yet. So those are items to discuss. In addition, I've asked Superintendent Entner to come up with a different project. And so if the consensus is we want to do a project, but we're going to avoid this, we have some information to present. This can't be avoided forever. So that type of dialogue also needs to happen. Can you share a little bit about some additional information on why the project cost was so high for this particular segment?
the biggest one was MnDOT's right away. And then the pump setups, the bypass pump setups, which I think there was 11 setups for this section, which was very difficult as well.
So this 1,100-foot section, our projects in the past that have been $100,000 projects have been about 1,100 feet, correct? So that's where we started. Every project for about $100,000, we've been getting 1,100 feet. Well, we looked at this 1,100-foot stretch, which is picking up where we left off, and it's 3 times the cost.
This is still the oldest, worst clay line in the city.
Some of the oldest, yes.
Probably the worst, I.
Could be. Could be. I can't guarantee that.
So if we just
You have
went
to
ahead.
remember, if anything is clay tile pipe,
Yeah,
it's gotta go,
right.
because it is leaking. So I can't tell you what's leaking worse and what isn't.
If we went ahead and did another 100,000, we would just we would get as much done as we possibly could with it, but we're still hitting this worst one.
Say that one more time, I think.
He's asking if we did a $100,000 project, would you recommend just shorten the distance, or would you recommend a different project?
No, I would recommend a different project, I think.
How come? This is still the worst.
It is, so, perfect example, $100,000, if you look at that map,
Uh-huh.
and you see this is a, I need to do better with my maps, I'm sorry. I will try doing better.
Thank you.
Yes, you're welcome. If you look, this is awful, I can't believe I actually turned this into you. There's a green marker with, it looks like a pen mark through it with an X, right?
Right.
So that's where we left off, which is right behind the theater, right? $100,000 would get us into the middle of 73, which is about 35 feet, and then across the bank parking lot to that one manhole. That's it. Due to the expense of bypass pumping, right-of-way permits, setup, tear down. Perfect example here, okay? I'm just gonna pull this out. I was gonna pull it up later, but we're just gonna do it right now. Here's another option for a project that I put together this afternoon after I found out this was the issue this was turning into. Everything in pink here is another project which is totaling about, I gave you mine. All my notes are on there. Here, I'm taking that back, thanks. That's totaling about 1,600 feet. and that's gonna come up roughly about $112,000. I have a very hard time spending $100,000 on 2 shots, we call them shots, manhole to manhole is a shot. Downtown, I have a very hard time spending that kind of money on 2 shots equaling maybe 330 feet of pipe. When for the same money, we can do $112,000 worth of work equaling about 1,600 feet, which that pipe is just about as low as the rest of it.
I like the option.
I
To
do
me,
not like, sorry, go
This,
ahead.
that's, I mean, this is a good option to have, you know, for the bang for the money. The only thing, we still will have to come back and get that for
We
the
have,
same amount.
and we have multiple areas in town to do that. So does that mean
Yeah.
we put together a $300,000 lighting project in 2025, 24, 26? I mean, I'm all in, but
This is a good option. How much would this?
about 112,000.
I mean, this is a big area,
Right.
so I like it. Council?
It's just tough because,
I don't want to pick up where we left off. That's what's.
We're
so
gonna
hard
have to
for
come
me.
back to it at some point.
We're gonna have
Yeah.
to, but
so it's additional planning. So looking at,
And this is the next probably worst play. We're gonna get to this
we're gonna be
anyway.
here anyway.
Yeah.
What were you saying? I'm sorry.
so some of the dialogue that we've had, and just to be really transparent, is we're gonna have to come across some type of monies like we did with the FEMA project or, COVID monies or look at redistributing some of the revenues that are coming in to plan for a project like this, that's significantly more. It's really tough to, when we're wanting to push development, to not have a project that directly impacts sewer pond capacity. So with our dialogue today, this is important. This is really important for other goals that the city has with development. But this can't be forgotten, just because it's tough.
And I do not like running away from it. I really would like to take off right where we left off and keep going. One big wave from one end to the other end. But
Sounds like more planning
Yes.
needs to be done with it.
if we were to go look at the project that we were planning on going to do, down by the lights here, we would go walking. If we went and looked at this project, we jump in the truck and we go see a whole bunch of stuff that got done for the same amount of money.
If I may, this still has to be video.
Televised, yep.
Televised?
Yep.
So that we know that the project is a really good one, because if it's not bad, then we won't necessarily go through with this.
I can tell you when, I mean, it doesn't rain here anymore, like we all know, it's dry, but when it does rain, we have an influx in I-9, that station, which is, that whole network of town is on one station, those hours quadruple. So I know there's I-9 issues there.
When this was brought up a number of years back, when we televised, right before this was a bad area. And they talked about the pump down in that area, how much it had to work after
Yep.
a wet season or whatever. So I already know that past history has told us this was an I&I problem.
Right.
This goes back several engineer groups.
You have to remember, any lining project that's clay tile pipe, that's close to the lake, because everything around the lake is fairly flat, right? As the water comes up, that's a good project for I-9. And this is, 80% of this is clay. If you look at that map, you can read the first 2 shots, 222 feet of PVC, 265 feet of PVC, from there on out is clay tile. One thing with this too, that lift station, that's the yellow block that has a couple letters in there you can't read because there's a green dot in the middle of it.
Yeah.
That lift station is the one we're lining this summer through the Minnesota Department of Health grant that we got. So like that entire end of town, lift station and all, will be done.
That'd be great.
So I'm not trying to sell projects, but I don't like spending that type of money, and that's the planning for it.
It is the best use of our funds that we have available.
So are we looking for a motion to
So
change it? I guess consensus.
consensus at this point, Superintendent Edner would then take this back to the city engineers. They would come up with their official estimate, their project, and we would bring the project back to council.
Correct.
for approval.
But we'll also start working on televising records for that area as well.
Correct.
Will there be enough time this summer to get that done?
So that's why I was gonna ask you, do you mind if we just go out and hire the same outfit we did for lining? Not lining, I'm sorry,
Televising.
televising, so we can be a month ahead on this? That bill will be somewhere between $4,000 and $5,000.
In
And
addition,
if you don't feel comfortable, I'll get 2 quotes, we'll come back here and we'll spend 30 days, I don't care, that's fine.
I know that we're gonna be running into a timeline.
Yes,
here
we are.
If we don't move on this now.
Well, there's a reason we chose that.
They were the lowest bid
beforehand,
before.
So
Yeah, I've been so
don't-
happy with that company.
see that getting 2 bids on.
I mean, could we even send it out to an email once they get the quote back?
we can, I mean, technically that's it within the purchasing power of the city administrator regardless, but we always like to be really transparent. Can you confirm that the televising records are then being utilized for our GIS system?
Two totally different things, but we can.
Can they utilize it to identify infrastructure and can it be utilized at all, that video footage?
No,
Okay.
no, that's totally just to see what the inside of your network looks like.
I was
That's-
curious.
Has nothing to do with geolocation.
Locating. Okay.
To speed things along, we could give the authority to the administrator to, should always look at 2 bids.
I happily will. I have no
And
problem, I
really,
will.
and we could give the authority to the city administrator to move on the lowest bid.
I can definitely do that.
But if city administrator Owens and, well, I would just say if we can get the same price, if they can give us the same price, they were the lowest quote just a couple of months ago. Why don't we just move forward? If they can give us quotas give us the same price per foot,
Same for the pricing.
then there's no reason why we have to go through this again. We do know time is an issue.
This one won't finish until Thanksgiving.
Yeah.
Is that your motion?
Sure, why not?
Do I have a second?
All seconds.
All right, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, we're moving on to D, the 2023 sewer lining. Okay, we just did that. Now E, the 2023 flood damage assessment.
Good evening, council, mayor, and Administrator Owens. So I'm gonna keep this short, we've been here for a while already.
Sorry.
So as far as costs that the city incurred for the flood that just happened this spring, we compiled a workbook and tracked all of our dollars spent in time, labor, and equipment and materials, and submitted those to the county. They have been submitted to the county for them to tally at a state level. So in short, we had around 540 hours worked on the flood management, which ended up totaling about $14,000 in wages. Some of our largest costs were for concrete block, around $15,000. Our pumps cost us around $10,000, and the berm construction, which ended up being 25-ish thousand in a couple different payments. We also had some costs for sand and gravel that washed away at the campground. Our picnic tables, we had to replace a bunch of those. And then fuel for public works and our police department as well. So our total costs in equipment and materials then came to around $125,000. So yeah, we got that submitted to the county, and then depending on what the totals end up being at the state level, that will determine what monies we will get back.
So we pretty much got to the 80,000 for the county itself.
Correct.
Yeah.
There was, all of these were submitted countywide. There was a lot of different entities that were requested to submit, and then again, it's being tabulated at a state level. We'll hear whether or not the state met the $10 million threshold, and then that determines the additional 25%. So we know we have 75% coverage of cost, and the additional 25% will come if the state meets the $10 million threshold. So we'll make sure we keep you informed, but. Taylor did great
questions?
work on this. This has
Yeah.
been, in the past, what we've learned from previous events. And so the tracking of this was very timely, organized. We were able to submit all of our documentation to the county upon request. And they actually were given 48 hours notice, the county was, that FEMA was coming. And so within, a very quick request, we were able to turn around and get them all the documentation they needed. So great job from city administration.
That was, it
Thank
took
you,
months
Taylor.
before.
Do you want me to talk about
Actually.
the schedule as well? I think that's next.
Yes.
I'll stay.
Thank you. So moving on, any questions by the council, by the way? Good job, thank you. We're moving on to F, 2023 City of Moose Lake fee schedule.
Okay, so I believe the only new additions to the fee schedule were some fixes to the campground fees. Our fees on the fee schedule were reflecting what we were actually charging in the campground. So I think we had to update the wood to $9, ice is $3, and then we also added a fee for some t-shirts that we are selling out of the campground office that just say Moose Lake Campground. We thought maybe the seasonals would like to purchase those, or anybody else, and then also the campground staff could have a t-shirt that identifies them as campground staff. So those are what we just bought.
Flying off the backs.
In addition, we have the columbarium prices at the bottom, so we distributed pictures. Taylor went up to the columbarium and took some pictures. It looks amazing.
The gardeners did a great job with that.
Yes, so, if anybody would like to go take a look, the mindset will be a winged approach for expansion. And so we have ideas in place and a plan for future expansion. But with that, these prices have gone through the cemetery board, and the cemetery board has a recommendation based on review of other area cemeteries, columbarium pricing. There's a tiered approach depending upon level of where you're at within the columbarium that was researched. And so you'll see those itemized, whether it's a top row, second row, third row, or bottom row pricing. In addition, there's always an open and close fee, which just helps facilitate movement of city resources. That's different in the summer versus the winter. That's pretty standard with all the different cemeteries that we've researched. We've leaned on our cemetery sexton as well for some additional information and guidance throughout this process. So those fees are on here for approval as well.
So we're looking for a motion to approve these new changes and additions to the fee schedule.
Correct.
So any questions by the council? Hearing none, do I have a motion to accept?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Thank you, Taylor. Good job.
The next one, too.
Just that one.
Next one, F, 2023 City of Moose Lake. Okay, that's Schedule G. Ordinance number 170, an ordinance for the keeping of livestock and hobby farms.
Okay, so one of the things that I have learned since taking the website was one of our most common searches on our website is chickens. Literally everybody wants to know if they can have chickens, if their neighbors can have chickens. I have searched in our ordinances. I cannot find anything that's published regarding this other than just the nuisance ordinance where you can have offensive odors and whatnot, but nothing specifically targeting farm animals. We also had a complaint last week that somebody's neighbor has some animals that are causing an offensive smell. So I figured I should do some research, figure out what some other cities do. I looked at a lot of local cities. I tried to look at other cities that are in a more rural setting because things that would make sense in Minneapolis might not make sense in Moose Lake. We're a city, but we are still very rural. So farm animals include but are not limited to chickens, ducks, pigeons, pigs, sheep, goats, cows, horses, donkeys, llamas, alpacas, rabbits, and ferrets. There also is a definition in here for wild animals. There are probably state laws that, or the DNR, that prohibit you from keeping raccoons in your backyard, but now the city can too. So I am open to any and all feedback on the details of this. As it states right now, any property that is already zoned agricultural can have farm animals, or if you have a property that is 10 acres or greater in size. However, even if you, in town, you can have up to 4 chickens or rabbits, but you have to have at least 0.25 acres to have that. Now, I don't have any concept of what 0.25 acres looks like, so I, again, am open to.
It's a quarter of an acre.
Clearly. So those numbers can obviously be talked about and negotiated or whatever. The ordinance says that 4 chickens are allowed. If we want to not allow chickens, we absolutely can. I know there are some people in town that do have them already, and so if we do outlaw them, are we going to make them get rid of them, is the question. I put the number at 4 because chickens have to be in groups of at least 3 to be humane and happy. So you can't have less than 3, but more than 4 seems like a lot in town. Rabbits also allowed, no roosters because of the noise. Also, your coop or enclosure for your rabbits cannot be situated within 30 feet of a structure that's not owned by the animal's owner. So your coop can't be closer than 30 feet to your neighbor's house because they don't want to smell your chickens. And then the rest of it is basically, if you have these animals, you need to take care of them. You have to clean up after them, and they shouldn't be overly stinky. Basically, all this says. So, I think we need to do 2 more readings before we can pass the ordinance. So
Right,
between
yeah,
now
this would be
and next
the-
time, yep, I'm just kind of putting it out there and looking for any feedback so that we can tweak it between now and the next time, and then make final revisions before it gets approved. So do we have any thoughts?
I vaguely remember there was an ordinance on chickens because we've had this issue before where people wanted to have chickens in town, and there is some sort of ordinance somewhere.
We did have a complete discussion, we had a public hearing.
Yeah,
The ordinance was passed
yeah.
and filed somewhere in oblivion. You cannot find that ordinance. So I'm guessing it got put into a file, and a file went into a box, and the box stored, and it never got into our regular ordinance book. Because I've gone over this with,
We have these
with the
discussions,
office
so
staff
we-
that we did this,
We
Yeah.
started with research.
cannot find it.
Because there was
There
actually
wasn't
down
on-
here
there
on the
was.
corner, they wanted to have
Right.
chickens, and it was,
Yes, we've done a lot of
It was
research to
farm
try and
animals.
find it.
What did the ordinance say?
no, they didn't have chickens.
Yeah. no.
There was farm animals, and chickens was the one that kicked it off, but we went into farm animals,
Yeah.
and we even had the public hearing on it.
Yeah,
And we have never, not been able to find that ordinance.
I've had people ask me a ton of times, so we've been looking and looking and looking, and we're finally like, we might need to just write a new one because we can't find it, so.
It goes back to like 2008 or 9.
it was, yeah, it was quite some time.
Quite a while ago. And I don't know.
There's a lot of different opportunities or ideas that could go into this. You know, do you want to outlaw chickens completely? Do you want to say, yes, you can have them, but you have to have 5 acres? You know, it's a discussion that there are a lot of different pieces and variables.
We are getting communications from residents and complaints and, people wanting there to be an enforceable ordinance, which has spurred our research. And so it has been a topic of conversation, and city staff has had to engage with multiple people on it, so.
Okay, I don't know how big 0.25 acres is.
It's
either.
very small.
See?
So it's actually, I just did the math, honestly, a double lot, you would have more than a quarter of an acre.
So you have to
So,
have a
like,
double
So
lot.
Say
doing a
my-
double lot is 15,000 square feet.
So you could have chickens?
Yes.
I don't like that.
No, to me, if you went with the section 2 allowed animals, it could read, no farm animals shall be kept on lots less than 10 acres in size, I should have my glasses on, within the city limits.
Probably only one.
And that would be it. I
Okay.
don't think you need with exceptions, I would get rid of all of that, exceptions.
So we want it to stay 10 acres.
10 acres.
10 acres.
Because at some point, you're gonna be looking at animal control and things like that, and we spend enough time already just on the dog issues, so,
Geese and kennel.
yeah, where does it stop?
You know, since this is the first reading, we need to bring back the suggestions like you just made. And unfortunately, the chief is gonna have to use what ordinance we have to solve what problems come to you.
Yeah, thanks.
You're welcome.
And I
No, I'm
think-
glad Taylor's taking it on, because it's something that's,
It has
we
to.
already are getting
Yeah.
complaints, so it's better to stay ahead of it, and
I would guess the one that was written back in 2008, I'll choose a year, would have to be updated by now anyway.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
it did ban, there was no
No
chickens, so.
Yeah.
I think the most recent animals that we've run into are ducks and rabbits. So it wasn't even chickens this last time. Ducks and rabbits, yep. So,
Okay,
perfect.
appreciate that, thank you, good job.
Thank you, Taylor.
So homework for the council, just to bring back suggestions.
Already did.
Thank you. You may have more.
They're amazing.
Going on to Age, 4th Street and Elm Avenue inspection, discussion. This would be the main intersection we have right down here by the theater and the bank. And it was so bad, the potholes and this is probably 2 weeks ago, that I went to ask Phil, we need a project for that intersection. And my thought was, we need to develop it starting this year, and I was thinking probably for next year, because it would be unplanned, and that was to tear the whole intersection up and redo it, because it was so bad. He came up with a solution by a little research, and then you can explain how it, and why it looks the way it does. Yes, you can.
Not really, actually. I know the guy who runs the city of Mora, and they did exactly what you see in town all year last year throughout town, because they could not afford to pave anything, they could not afford to patch anything. They rent a roller from their local county like we do, and we get our roller in June 2 days out of the whole month. There's 2 Fridays there it's available. That's it. They have the same problem down there. They're like, we're just gonna start pouring mix on the road and smearing it around and let it get hard and see what happens. And it works. It's ugly, but it works. We've got one complaint about how ugly it is.
Correct.
And I'll be sure to get back to that individual if you don't.
All the other areas, though, that we've done that to, I have got positive feedback that, okay, it's ugly, but it's smooth. And they're not being beaten to death driving on it. So that, to me, is a fix in the short term. We still have long term, as all of us know, and it's not going away. But it turned out to be a good idea. It solved the problem being so rough on that. That's our main intersection, and it looked absolutely terrible. This is not the most beautiful thing, but it works.
Not even close, but when you're
It's smoother, and you're not going like this as you drive through it.
financially strapped, you don't have a whole lot of options.
No.
Looks cool out the window.
We need to find out what, I was talking to some individuals today and about streets and, and they said Buell and Babbitt redid their entire towns, brand new roads. So we need to find out what kind of grants and what they got to fix their railroad.
I already know. It's the IRRB money.
Correct, and there's a ton of it up there.
We don't get that.
That's also correct.
Probably a higher tax base too.
They might also do assessment policies up there.
Well, one thing that was submitted, there was a bill submitted for funding towns under 5,000 population. Unfortunately, got shelved. All cities above 5,000 population get funding for infrastructure from the state. Why it was set up like that is beyond me, because cities above 5,000 have a tax base, a bigger tax base to do these things. So all cities below 5,000 with a smaller tax base get zero. It does not make sense.
Let's invite them to drive through Moosomin.
But that was submitted, it was one of the bills, and the current legislature shelved it. It didn't, I don't know why, but it sure made a lot of sense to me. And I hope that's resurrected again next year. Because that definitely should be something that should be passed. But until then, we're gonna have an ugly patch that works great.
That works great.
Yes.
Yes, absolutely.
It does work. I just want to pass this information on this, and if anyone has ideas about grind and overlay, you can definitely talk to Phil and Alyssa. All right, moving on to Public Safety Duty Disability Bill update.
Yes, I included in the packet a communication from the League of Minnesota Cities regarding the governor signing a public safety duty disability bill. On May 11th, it went through the Senate, and then on May 15th was passed by the House and will be effective July 1st. So just a couple of summary points from the communication that was included in the packet. There's a separate webinar coming in July, and so I'm going to make sure that all city councilors have an account through the League of Minnesota Cities, so I can send you the webinar information if you have any interest in participating. It's going to be specifically on the PTSD duty disability bill. Some of the key points within that bill that have been highlighted are it passed full state funding for continued health insurance benefit for the members of city staff that are currently receiving, or previous staff that are currently receiving a health insurance benefit from the city. The reimbursement is contingent on the employer having some type of employer assistance program and peer assistance program in place. So what that looks like is Darren and I are going to have to coordinate with council regarding what type of program and parameters we have to have in place in order to be eligible for the reimbursement of the health insurance monies. In addition, the disability benefits through para, there won't be any unless there's up to 24 weeks of treatment is completed. So it's going to require an officer or medic or firefighter go through 24 weeks of treatment, and that time will be, or monies associated with that will be reimbursable as well. The state will pay for the time off and some of the expenses for the mental health injury treatment as well. Now, this was passed as a one-time funding. It's $104 million that have been earmarked. The state is estimating this gets us through approximately 3 years. So conversations are being had that there needs to be some type of permanent solution for cities as far as the health insurance reimbursement component is concerned, and some of these other benefits for officers and firefighters and medics as well. And so the 3-year time frame is going to be a trial on what works and what doesn't work. So they're going to take this 3-year period to see what type of impact it has on cities, but also those affected by PTSD as well. So I'm hoping that the 104 gets us through 3 years. I'm hearing it's more like 2, but In the meantime, we'll be working to make sure we have programs in play for city staff, and that we look into the reimbursement process, and that we continue to facilitate things as best we can for our officers and the city as well. So I will get out information on the July webinar, but I just wanted to provide an update on what was passed thus far and some of the elements within it that have been identified as important.
You know, I would think because it's hitting statewide that there's gonna be a lot of activity developing programs.
Correct.
And I would hope like the League of Cities is gonna put together like a format that cities can use to establish this. And I would imagine there's gonna be a lot of companies that'll wanna get in on this, that do this type of work, that can set it up.
Correct.
And are you hearing that
The
already?
league already does have a program in place, and Lexipol, the company that we go through with all of our policies, has one already in place that you can use. And about a year ago, so we had a meeting with all of our staff and already decided and advertised we have to have one of our members of the department that oversees that program, so we've selected somebody to do that. So that is ready to go. It's just kind of a matter of putting our program in, and we'll already have the policy framework through Lexipol, that it's already there, it's already implemented. So it's just a matter of finally just rolling it out and going with it, because those are already there. The league already has stuff.
Sure,
That's
and it's
great.
just making sure that, and the legal do the background to make sure that they're connecting with the bill to make sure that the requirements are met.
Yeah,
And
so I think we're in pretty good shape.
Pretty good
We'll
shape.
get that rolled out pretty fast.
Is there a cost using their system, or
I don't know about the league, I don't really believe there is.
so we can
Kind of just
set it up and
establishing
run
it,
it?
yeah.
And wow, that's
Right.
great.
Yeah, 'cause we've been in talks with them as they were setting up some of the stuff. I know the person that was heading it, and our city was one that worked with them quite a bit on some of the things, so, yeah, it's already there.
Great.
we're in a good spot. July 1st is when things are initiated. And so with it just being a couple weeks away, they're giving time for everybody to kind of get on board. There'll be another webinar, there'll be more information, they're updating their toolkit. But we do have a shorter turnaround time, so thankfully Chief Jutman has things in place and has had those discussions, and it'll be an easier turnaround for us than other cities. So.
Great, thank you. Good job.
Thanks.
Any question by the council? Hearing none, I'll move on to J. Moose Lake Brewing Company temporary on-sale liquor license request. Must be an event.
Yes, so I was contacted by the Moose Lake Brewery. They were looking to hold an event at the Riverside Arena that was a charity event for the Moose Lake Fire Department and the Moose Lake Police Department. And so with that, they're looking at doing a smelt fry and a beanbag tournament. So really excited about that. This permit is for that. The day of the event is June 24th. So looking to approve this temporary on-sale liquor license for that event. In addition, as a side note, the park board has approved waiving of the Riverside Arena rental fee because the event is for a charity event.
Council?
I'll make a motion, we approve the liquor license for the one-day event.
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Moving on to K, Moose Lake American Legion Post 379 gambling permit request.
This request has been an annual occurrence from the Moose Lake American Legion, Post 379 towards the city. It's for a bingo event in the Moose Lake City Park.
This would be the 4th of July. Motion to approve.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. L, Sturgeon Lake Area Lions, LG 555 form.
Yeah, the Sturgeon Lake Area Alliance has submitted this form. It's a requirement based on the city accepting a donation for the 4th of July celebration to go for the Osprey Wilds event in the city park. And so technically, the city has to approve the donation.
Motion?
Motion to approve.
Do I have a second? Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. M, resolution number 23-06-01.
So this was mentioned previously within the engineering minutes. So we've been working with the city engineers regarding capital projects. So what we're going to be doing is submitting within the state Minnesota Management and Budget portal. By Friday, we're going to be submitting for a 2024 potential project. The project that we've been working on for submission with the city engineers is a I&I reduction project. The city of Moose Lake is going to be asking for $1.5 million for a really extensive lining project that covers a massive amount of infrastructure within the city of Moose Lake. There's been some identified reasons as to why. Primary reasons would be economic development and the aging infrastructure and our desire to continue to expand. In order to do so, we need to be able to have the infrastructure to do so. So I will be working with the city engineers tomorrow to submit this request for $1.5 million for a project. This resolution just kind of outlines what we're looking to accomplish and is part of the application process.
Questions by the council?
I'll make a motion we approve resolution 23-06-01.
Have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Hopefully we'll get this I&I thing done all at once.
We have actually been contacted by Representative Dodsett's office to make sure that we're participating. In addition, I was just contacted by Senator Rarick's office to make sure that we're participating. So we got an invite in order to do so, and so we'll just absolutely be submitting. And at that point in time, then it's trying to use our resources and our network from a city perspective just to get our need heard. So working on all that in the background.
Moving on to N, resolution number 23-06-02.
Yes, so this is a resolution. This is a technical aspect of the land purchase, the 16-acre land purchase from the school district, Independent School District number 97. This was drafted by our city attorneys and will be utilized within the closing and/or purchase process. So we're getting really close. This is a technical obligation of that.
Council? Motion to approve? So moved. Do I have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Number O, Lakeside Traders.
Yeah, so received a communication from Lakeside Traders regarding
Handout you guys have?
yes, this is the handout. So this is regarding the utilization of, what's already been established with council is the utilization of that old FEMA lot for the public to be able to walk down the FEMA lot and launch their kayaks from the kayak rental at Lakeside Traders. So there's been a solution in play to try and mitigate any problems that are being had with neighbors. And so some of those solutions are the posting of this 18 by 18 sign on the property of Lakeside Traders. So they are going to be doing their best to communicate exactly where people should be and where they should not be. In addition, they're requesting, can they put a windsock or something down by the lake to make sure that it's very clear to patrons where to launch their kayaks. And so it's their perspective that all of their patrons are already doing this. These communications are in hopes to make sure that everybody in the area feels like they're making an effort to keep everybody on public property.
council? I don't know if we need a motion, this would be more like
More
a
like consensus.
consensus, yeah.
It's really tough for the private residences down there. I mean, we've heard it and I don't know, you know, it's really tough. It's hard to have that public lot in between the private lots. But it's being utilized to provide a service in the community and experience in the community. So definitely see it from both sides. We've been kind of having internal discussion about what can be done, you know, if to make that a corridor and make it obvious that it's a corridor, but putting up a fence or some type of more permanent boundary might be a hindrance to viewing, and I don't know if that's a positive or a negative to those residents. So steps like this we're helping to identify without changing the landscape, just where everybody needs to be, and it was a in good faith effort paid for by Lakeside Traders in order to try and accomplish that. It's kind of where we're at, and that's what inspired this request.
So consensus by the council on the request? Got consensus?
Thank you.
Moving on, number 7, reports and correspondence. 7A, Arbor Day Foundation 2022 Tree City USA designation. I believe there's a letter
Correct.
to the city for your review. Number 7B, Minnesota State Demographic Center annual population and household estimates.
Just sharing what the Demographic Center has sent to us. It looks like the estimated population within the city is 2,824. I did get a request from a city councilor to ask what contributions were from the state facility to that number. And so I have reached out via email, not heard back yet, but I can share that information. Right now, it was just making you aware of their population estimate and that the household estimate is right around 604.
Any questions by the council? We should keep this data on hand somewhere because it comes up often
Frequently.
during meetings with other entities.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Moving on to C, League of Minnesota's dues increase notification.
So we do pay a due to the League of Minnesota Cities. Again, it brings us webinars, valuable information, toolkits, resources. They've made us aware that they are going to have a 4.5% increase, but we utilize them very heavily, and they are an excellent resource for the city to have this information shared.
Any questions by the council on that? Very good. 7D, Minnesota Department of Health Sanitary Sewer Report for Moose Lake Public Water System.
Yep, so this report came in, just an information share. If you have any questions, City Superintendent Edner is going to be the go-to contact for this. He just wanted this information to be visible.
Any specifics you'd care to share, Phil, on this?
Yeah, it's called out, it's been called out for many years, and we still have some 4-inch water main in town, so minimum standard now is 6-inch, which means we have a lot of work to do, so
Very good.
spend some more money. I gotta say it, I gotta say it, I mean. What?
Start printing it.
What's that?
Start printing it then.
We're working on that.
Okay.
Okay. Moving on to 8, committee and board meeting minutes. 8A is the park board regular meeting minutes for June 5th. B is the Moose Lake Area Fire Protection District meeting minutes for May 9th. Any specifics, Walter, on the updates or things you need to know on the fire district?
On the fire district. Not at this time.
Thank you. 9, announcements, regular Moose Lake City Council meeting Wednesday, July 12, 2023, 4 p.m. right here. Moose Lake Economic Development Authority, Wednesday, June 21st, 2023, 12 p.m. at the City Conference Room. Moose Lake Water and Light Commission, regular meeting June 20th, 2023, 1 PM, the Water and Light Office. Moose Lake Housing Redevelopment Authority Board, Monday, July 10th, 2023, 11 a.m. at the Hillside Manor Office, Moose Lake Area Fire District, Tuesday, July 11th, 2023, 6:30 p.m. Emergency Response Center. Moose Lake Park Board meeting, Monday, July 10th, at 5 p.m. right here. Anything else from the council administrator? Hearing nothing, do we have a motion to adjourn? Have a second? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried, we are adjourned.